All right, everyone. The Democrats had a mini tantrum and shut down the government accidentally. They thought, I think, that Trump would predominantly take the blame. Then they realized that actually the metrics of the shutdown favored almost Trump over everyone else. Like the congressional Republicans, they don't get brownie points for it. They're in Congress. Nobody likes Congress. But the congressional Democrats thought if they just did the hashtag resist, not party of Trump thing, that all of a sudden the entire center, like the unbiased, apolitical, and independent voters of the country would side with them on the shutdown and say, well, we must save the immigrants. It turns out, of course, that was actually opposite the truth. Only about a third of Americans thought it was more important to preserve DACA and all of these other things as opposed to making sure the government stayed afloat. Now, personally, in my opinion, I go past the Democrats and say, just have a government shutdown, keep it shut down perpetually. Keep it in that condition until we can get enough reform to cut all of those non-essential positions, non-essential bureaus, and lay waste to maybe, I would say, a quarter of all government spending. If we could reduce government spending by a quarter, privatize and or eliminate that quarter of function, you do realize we'd have a shit ton more money in our pockets. And the economy would grow a lot faster. Abuse by the government would be a lot more insignificant, and people's lives could go back to being happier than they were before. But that's just my opinion, man. I mean, it's not like we ever had a time in American history where taxes were, at that low a rate. Actually, that was most of our history. But okay, appeal to modernity. Yeah, logical fallacy time, I guess. Oh, it's what we're doing now as opposed to the past, so it's superior because, progress and stuff. Bullshit. But Schumer now has come forward. He realized he looked weak because of this, and he said, oh shit, I gotta do something or else, even the Democrats are gonna be after my ass. So he says now he's standing up to Trump, and it's like watching like a 5-year-old or a midget try to stand up to someone who does like WrestleMania or something. And he sits there and pisses his pants and shits them too and gets all smelly in an act of self-defecation defiance and says, well, I'm taking wall funding off the table. Ha, ha, you can't have it. It's not going to work, Chuck. That's not the way that things work at all. The Democrats don't control the House or Senate. At any given time, Trump could command them to use the nuclear option. They probably wouldn't even have a choice. At some point, the Republicans are going to get pissed off enough, and the centrists too, that they're going to force immigration reform down your throat. They will fund the wall, go after sanctuary cities and everything else. You're going to have to, appeal to the Ninth Circuit. They can't stand in his way forever when the Supreme Court is largely on Trump's side. These are self-evident sort of issues in which the executive branch clearly has the ability to do these things. The Senate has the right to invoke the nuclear option at any time. The court's consent is not required, and ram through anything that they happen to wish. As far as funding, that's clearly a function that Congress is able to do. You wouldn't be able to challenge the wall funding. You might be able to challenge confiscation required to complete parts of it, but then again, eminent domain as well is basically a settled issue. By the way, I personally don't like the idea of eminent domain applied too broadly. It can be important and necessary, but it should be used as sparingly as possible, in as unabusive and unintrusive a manner as possible, and there should be a guarantor attached that a person who's having their property taken involuntarily should be compensated at much more than 100% of market value. Should be 10 times that. They should get a mint for their property. They have an acre of land. It shouldn't be, you get the $15,000 you paid for it. No, you should get $150,000. You should have enough to buy a small house, plus another plot of land anywhere you want. That way, a little limit state and federal authorities from using it too often. As long as that happens, I would say it's largely fair, because then you're not depriving someone of happiness in the same way. Certainly, that money is going to make up for it in part. Of course, they should be able to negotiate for more money. Like, the government should try to give the carrot instead of the stick. It keeps trying to sodomize people with a stick when it could just say, here's a fucking basket of carrots. Look, carrots are cheap, dude. It's a lot cheaper. The government suffers constantly. Our budgets, the way our economy works is leaky anyway because people won't cooperate with federal authorities half the time. They don't want to because they see you as abusive. But Schumer comes out, and he's trying to belly up to the bar and drink Trump under the table. Trump, meanwhile, he can sit there and guzzle the whiskey. Chuck Schumer's been a teetotaler for the last 10 years. I don't think he realizes the difference in power level, number one. I don't think he realizes how Congress is comprised, number two. I don't think he realizes how weak the Ninth Circuit is in the face of the Supreme Court, number three. Number four, I don't think he understands public will, like the popular vote as applied to this issue. And number five, I don't think he realizes how Trump negotiates. Trump will sit there and say, okay, no wall funding, then no DACA deal. It's going to lapse. The Supreme Court is going to overturn the lower court's, hold on this. And then all of these people will be deported and it'll be your fault. The program will end, they will lapse, they will all be under no status, and they'll get kicked out of the country. What are the Democrats supposed to do? Look, most people in the center don't care if you deport those that are illegally here. Clemency for dreamers is one thing. Strangulating the government in order to gain that clemency is another. What they expect is for both sides to compromise. Trump has already expressed a willingness to do that. He said, yeah, you probably have all of DACA back, but I need X, Y, and Z. Sanctuary cities have got to go. The wall has to be built, and everyone else has to be deported, in accordance with laws passed by Congress, not part of this administration, including the will of the Democrats back in the 90s and 2000s at the time. It's not draconian. It's not bigoted. It has nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with some grand overhaul in the way things work. It has to do with a restoration of the way things were already working for half a century before Obama came along and said, well, but there are certain classes of people that I want to show more mercy to. And this is the same Obama that campaigned on there will never be amnesty and everyone who's illegally here must be deported, no conditions. That's what he said at the time. He ran on that platform. So, by the way, too, did Bush and Gore, and John Kerry, and John McCain, and Mitt Romney, and Obama himself in both terms. All of these people who are considered now, compared to evil Orange Hitler, to be totally normal, to the point where Democrats no longer even dislike Bush, despite killing 500,000 people. And lay Republicans, the anti-Trump Republicans, are like buddy-buddy with the Clintons. All of these people, despite all of their various stupidity, are considered normal and sane and great. Okay, well, every single one of these people campaign on there will be no amnesty. It won't happen. Amnesty is bad. Yes, the border must be secure. Bubba Bill comes out and says, oh, people can't think that they can just march into our country, in flagrant violation of our laws. And yet now, if Trump says the same thing, all of a sudden, because we're in modernity now, the post-Obama, the wonderful progressive, 1984 era, you're not even allowed to suggest that publicly without being called a bigot. It doesn't make any sense. It has nothing to do with bigotry. Look, it doesn't matter what national origin it is, what color the skin is. They're here illegally, dude. They're skirting U.S. law. I, too, want to see clemency granted for certain groups of people, but not fucking 4 million people. That's crazy talk, dude. Some of these people, too. You got someone who's committed a series of misdemeanors and they're not doing anything productive. Why the hell would you want to ignore the law in that case? It's different. Someone's been a stellar, upstanding individual. They were a combat veteran. They get shot in the leg and stuff. They got a kid here. Okay, work things out and expedite them in going through the legal process. But there has to be control over that process at large, or you don't have sovereignty. Building a wall helps with this system. Building a wall might, by the way, even help Mexico. Look, Mexico has problems with people coming from Central America on trains and trails through Mexico to get to our porous border to pour across into here. Mexico's tired of having to deal with it. They have death trains that they put them on now. They get to the southern border, say, okay, get on the fucking train, hold on, for the next couple days. It's going to be a while. And, we're not giving you, food or medicine or anything. So by the time they come here, they're like, no, they got cholera or something. And Mexico is doing this because it doesn't have the capability to shelter and move these people in a more humane way. Well, if the wall is there, then Mexico doesn't have to do that because no one will be pouring across their border either. Could help to stamp out some cartel activity because it controls the movement of goods and individuals. Now, it's not perfect. There will be tunnels that are built. People try to go around it. People try to go through it probably. But it's better than not having a barrier. It really is. It makes it harder. It means that there is less of a reason for people to do so. It also, if it helps Mexico's economy by preventing the mass migration of people through Mexico, could help with people who would want to illegally leave Mexico to come here as well. Be helpful. We should be, by the way, we should be helping the Mexican government stamp out cartels. One big way, legalize pot here. There goes part of their income. They'll have to choose, they can choose whether they want the drug smuggling tunnel to be built or they want the new tank, but they can't have both. Still have a lot of money and power down there, but they're a little bit less. And I think that's a good thing. That trickles down, by the way, to a reduction in inner city crime here as some of that income dries up for the middleman gangs, too. I don't think people quite realize how great ending the drug war plus building a border wall really could be for Latin America. I think it would help more than just the United States. I mean, opponents of it, they'll be humane to people in Mexico. And it's not humane to keep the border porous. You're causing a lot of problems. You're also causing brain drain to some extent down there with the visa lottery. And then sanctuary cities. Why would you want... Look, this boils down to a really weird issue in which the Democrats, like they did in the Civil War, are arguing for local and states' rights over federal supremacy on the basis of basically people. Except before it was we want to own black people to be able to farm the cotton. Now it's we want to be able to import cheap workers that are basically slaves anyway for our corporate buddies because Hillary Clinton was the corporate candidate. It seems like that's what it really boils down to. They want more cheap laborers they can put in sweatshops to work for, 20 cents an hour. It's what a wonderful time. The Clinton Foundation needed more people to sell to Qatar to be, basically sex slaves, I guess. Yeah, that's really humane, folks. Yeah, Schumer, you're standing on principle. No, what you're doing is slapping yourself in the face. What Schumer's doing is making an embarrassment of his own neoliberal movement by looking weak and then looking weak again. By looking like an asshole, basically saying, oh, we're going to shut down the government again at some point here because we refuse to build a wall. The wall has nothing to do with race, Schumer. You need to understand that. But he wouldn't understand that because he has to pander. He has to do the identity politics thing to get reelected. Otherwise, if he doesn't promise people more of others' money and more identity politics, everyone should be guilty if they're part of the Native American culture. If he doesn't do that, he doesn't get reelected because of the weird way the neoliberals have structured their campaigns in the past. That's about all. Peace out.